In this lab, we're going to model the rock cycle, both physically by moving around the room, as well as to make a graphical representation of it. This is an individual activity, so you're not working with partners. Each person will model their own unique rock cycle. This video is an example to help you know what to do. So everyone, like I said, is going to be doing their own pathway, so do not write this down now. When the Earth was forming, all of the rock material on Earth was molten rock. So everyone's going to start off at magma. For all of the stations, you're going to get up and go to the lab tables. Each lab table will have one station at it. I'm going to show you on paper. So we start off at magma. You're going to roll a die to represent what's going to happen, what process. So at magma, there are several different options depending upon what number you roll. So I rolled a 2. So magma pushes into existing bedrock slowly, cools underground to make an intrusive igneous rock. Minerals with large crystals form magma slowly and solidify. So it says in blue, go to igneous rock. That's going to represent the next type of rock that I'm going to go to. So I'm going to start at magma and draw an arrow to igneous rock. Notice I'm putting that pointy part at the top of the arrow. That's really important because that's going to tell me where the cycle goes next. If you don't have that arrow, I'm not going to be able to grade it, so make sure you include the pointy part. The cools underground part is going to go on the line. That is the process by which it happens. So the red part I read on the line, and the blue part is where I draw my arrow to. So by the time you're done with this, you will have done 40 different rows of the dice. That can create a really busy diagram. So to make it a little easier to read, we're going to put little number 1 there. And what that's going to do is, number 1 is going to help me track where you're going. And number 2, it's going to allow us to save some arrows later on. I'll show you that in a second. So I've got my arrow, my process, and my step. Now I'm going to go find the lab station that has igneous rocks. And I'm going to roll my die there. When I get there, I roll my die. This time I rolled a 1. Notice in blue it says outcrops. So I'm going to draw a line from where I just was, which is igneous rock, and draw 2 outcrop. So it says deeper layers of the rock are pushed to the surface by uplift, by plate movement, and rising magma. So once again, the blue part tells me where my arrow should go, and the red part tells me the process. So in this case, the process is uplift, which means that something is from underground is being lifted up in some way. This is my second row, so I'm going to label that with number 2. Notice that I rolled a 1, but I wrote down number 2, and that's because the numbers that I write show the order of the steps that I take in this particular sequence, not the numbers that I rolled. Also note that I have that pointy part of the arrow that makes it an arrow, not a line, pointing to my destination, which is outcrops. So now I would go to the next station, which was outcrops. I'm going to find the lab table, look at the handout, and roll my die. I rolled the die, I got a 3. So it says that outcrops are exposed to the elements and undergo weathering and are broken down to rocks in smaller pieces. Go to sediments. So I draw the arrow showing that I'm going to sediments. That's in blue. And remember, I've got the pointy part to make it an arrow. This was my third row, so I'm going to label it a 3. And then weathering it's underlined in red, so that is the process, and I'm going to write that on the line. So now I'm going to go to the lab table that has the sediment station on it. And I will roll my die. And I get a 1. When I roll the die, I get a 1. Notice it says erosion, sediment, rock pieces moved by wind, water, glaciers, and gravity. Stay here at sediments. So something's happening, but I'm not changing rock form. So to show that, I'm going to draw an arrow that circles back on itself, a big loop. I'm going to label the process erosion because that's what's in red. And this is my 4th go around, so I'll put a 4 there. Then, because it told me to stay here, it's still in sediments, I'm going to roll again. This time I've got a 4. I'm going to actually pretend that it's a 1. And I'm going to pretend that, once again, it tells me erosion is staying here. So rather than write a whole new arrow and making my diagram more complicated, I'm just going to write a number 5 there because it was my 5th row. Then, while still staying here, I roll again. Let's pretend this time I got the 4. It says go to sedimentary rock, so I put an arrow on, and I label deposition and lithification on the line because that's what's listed in red. So you're going to continue on in this way. until I've gone 40 total times. That sounds like a lot, but it's going to go really quick once you get the hang of it. And you're going to have multiple times where you can do like you did with erosion, and rather than drawing a whole new arrow, you're just going to draw whatever number you're on. So as you notice, you'll see that there's a bunch of different stations that seem kind of similar. For example, you have cooling underground and cooling above ground. Those are two different things. They both go to igneous rock, but they're two different processes. They both go from magma to igneous rock, but one's cooling underground, the other is erupting and cooling. So I need two different arrows to show I have two different ways that it could go from magma to igneous rock. Similarly, there are multiple reasons to go to a lot of other ones, including metamorphic rock, and so each of those things labeled in red on the stations would need their own line. Again, make sure that you've got the numbers, that all the lines have arrows on them, and the labels, and I promise it goes faster than you think. When you completed the 40 turns, then you can go to Canvas and answer the follow-up questions, an assignment called Rock Cycle Analysis. Complete the Canvas part after you've done this part. You'll notice there's stuff on the other side. I'm not grading that, I'm only grading the model. What's on there is, of course, the instructions and then all the vocabulary terms that you should have gleaned by doing the activity. All of those vocabulary terms are in your notes with the exception of uplift, which is just when various processes like plate tectonics cause rock to come to the surface. And all of those, again, are in this lab and you should have gleaned them from the lab. After completing the Canvas part, please turn in the paper part so I can grade it.